Welcome to the video on how to complete the Vincennes University course outline. While you're watching this video, you should have the following documents in front of you: the template for the VU Common Course outline, the syllabus template, the instructions for both these documents, and these all came in a email you got from Carolyn Jones in May, or it came in this email that you got this link from. And while this information is important, it's not the most exciting, so you may want to have a caffeinated beverage with you as you watch it. Now, why are we doing this? I know we've done this several times in the past, but hopefully this was designed to make it so that it would not have to be redone as often, if at all. You may just have to make small changes as you make changes in your class. But why we're making these changes now is, as most of you know, we now have the statewide general education outcomes that we have to show that we are teaching and assessing. North Central wants it as part of its report. For the core transfer library for the state, there needs to be consistency in certain information in the course outline. And within the university itself, we need more consistency. When we look at course outlines, we need to see the same information for each class. And another big deal, and this should matter to all faculty, is quality assurance. We have a lot more adjuncts teaching, we have a lot more early college sites opening up, and we have a lot more Excel faculty. We need to make sure that what's being taught by an adjunct or in a different campus is the same as what we are teaching on campus. So we want to make sure that these people know what we're expecting to be part of a Vincennes University class. So as you go through this process, make sure if you have Jasper faculty that are teaching at the Jasper campus, that they are part of the process of putting together these course outlines. It's very important that we communicate with them. We need to make sure that the courses at the Jasper campus and the Vincennes campus are the same. And then we can expand from there into these other areas to make sure that we're offering quality classes that are the same or very similar to what's being taught on the main campus. So that's why we're doing this. And again, I know it's frustrating. We've done them several times before, but hopefully this time it will be a one-time thing with just slight modifications that will occur to the outline as you may change the class. Going through the course outline sections, the front page is pretty similar to everything we've done before. The only difference is it doesn't have a Roman numeral associated with it. For the course description, you need to get this from the online catalog. You can copy and paste it to this document. Something new, the course designation section. This is important. The rest of your outline, what's going to be included or needs to be included in the rest of the outline, is going to depend on what you put in this section. So every VU course should have at least one of these associated with it. It's either a UCC course, a major program course, an intensive course, or so on. So it needs to have at least one of these. It may have more, but it needs to have at least one of these on there. So again, when people are reviewing these course outlines, they know what they're looking for in the other sections. So what we've done is we've set it up a little differently than it's been in the past. We've put every possibility in here. You need to delete what is not part of your class. So if it's not a UCC course, delete that. Whatever it's not, delete, and then leave what it is in there. And again, this is important that you do this correctly, because as these are reviewed again, they're going to be looking at what you put in this section. One thing that was added from the one that was presented in May is the Senate added to this a developmental course. So this means that every course on or taught by VU should have at least one of these designations in it. There should not be a blank section, and you should not make something up. It needs to be one of these, at least one of these. Now, the next section deals with the VU Liberal Education outcomes. If you don't know, these were passed by Curriculum and the Faculty Senate last fall, in the fall of 2012. Depending on what type of course you are will depend or determine which of these you're going to leave. So again, we put them all there. You need to delete what does not apply to your course. So let me go through, depending on what kind of course you are, which ones you're going to leave there. If you are a UCC course, if you've been asked to put on the list provisionally on the UCC list, then you need to include at least the last three. You've agreed to teach ethical, critical, and integrative thinking in your UCC course. Now, if you go back and look at the assignment that was approved for critical thinking. Most of those assignments, if not all of them, involve either an oral presentation or a writing assignment or some type of communication. So for most of the UCC courses, look at what your assignment was, and you'll probably find that you can leave this first one in, because the way you're going to assess these skills is usually through an oral presentation or a written presentation. So for most UCC courses, leave this, so what you'll delete is the quantitative reasoning. If you are a UCC Writing or Speaking course, then you can delete the last 4 and leave the first one in. If you feel you do any of these other skills in there, then go ahead and leave it also. But again, writing or speaking, you're going to leave this first one. If the class is a UCC Math course, you're going to delete all 4 unless you think you cover them, but you must leave the quantitative reasoning outcome in your course outline. If you are a reading, writing, or speaking intensive course, you must leave the first one in, and you can delete the last 4. Again, if you feel you cover any of these and assess them, leave them in there, but you must have the first one. If you are a majors course, if you teach any of these skills and can assess it, then leave it in your Common Course outline. The goal with teaching these skills in UCC courses is that the student can then apply these to their majors area. So look at what you're doing in your major courses, and if you do any of these and you can assess it, then leave it in your Common Course outline and delete anything that you don't think you cover or assess. Now, we should be working on these skills in major courses, and if you're a capstone course for either the BS degrees or for a 2-year program, these should be in that capstone course, because again, we want to know that the students leave being skilled in these 5 areas. And capstone courses are important to that process, to assess that process. The next section is the UCC state outcomes met by this course. Again, what we've done is we've included all of these state outcomes. You're going to delete the ones that do not apply to your course. If none of the outcomes are addressed, you can insert non-applicable into this section. And again, you would delete everything. Again, for a majors course, look at the liberal education outcomes and look what you teach and assess in the course. And if you include it in your course, then you can leave them. You can leave some of these outcomes in a majors program course. They should be in there, at least some of them, depending on what area you are in. So if you're a UCC Science course, you must leave these scientific ways of knowing in the course outline, and you can delete the rest. If you're a UCC Social Science course, you will keep these in the course outline, delete the rest. The same if you're a UCC Humanities course, you will leave these outcomes in the course outline and delete the rest. UCC Writing Course, again, these are the ones that will be kept in the course outline for a UCC Writing Course. If you are a Writing Intensive course, we are asking that you leave this state outcome in your course outline, and we would like you to keep the number that is associated with that state outcome also. The reason we want the numbers, it'll make it easier when we get to the assessing part and to look at a course to see what exactly it is assessing. So please leave the state outcome number in your course outline. So again, if you're a Writing Intensive course, you will leave the state outcome. You must leave the state outcome in your course outline. If you're a Reading Intensive course, then you will leave 1.3 and 1.7. And yes, we understand they talk about more than just reading in these 2 outcomes, but you're going to assess the reading portion of these outcomes in a Reading Intensive course. If you're a UCC Speaking Course, speech course, then you will leave these state outcomes in your Common Course outline. If you are a Speaking Intensive course, you will leave outcomes 2.1 and 2.5 in your Common Course outline. So again, keep the numbers in there, and we will assess these in a Speaking Intensive course. If you're a UCC Math course, then you will leave the quantitative reasoning state outcomes in your Common Course outline. Now, we don't have quantitative intensive courses at this point, But our goal as a university is that we can assess these quantitative reasoning skills beyond a math course, that we can assess them in a majors course. So look at what you're doing, and I can tell you from the PE courses that I've taught and the courses I teach in biology, I can assess 2 or 3 of these in any of those courses. So again, we want to be able to assess these skills outside of a math course. So if you do any of these in any of your courses beyond the math course, then leave them in there. That way we know we can go to those courses to assess these outcomes, again, outside of a math course. At some point, we may be developing a quantitative intensive course. Course outcomes. Now, course outcomes, we need to talk about these a little bit. These are 5 to 10 broad knowledge skills or value outcome statements. It is not, outcomes are not a description of every little thing that you cover in the course or the instructor's objectives. Now, I was one of the worst people with this when we came out with course outcomes several years ago. And for anatomy and physiology, I felt that we had to have every little thing we taught down as a course outcome in order for the transfer issue. I wanted to make sure that other universities knew what we were teaching in anatomy and physiology. But then I was told that for every course outcome you have to be able to assess that outcome. And we had like 87. So we don't want to having to be assess 87 course outcomes. So those are really content, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. These course outcomes, again, are 5 to 10 broad knowledge skills. What I'd recommend you do is you look at your program outcomes that you developed for the assessment process, and from those, pick the ones that you cover in a certain course, and then you might have to slightly modify how they're worded in order to fit that specific course within a program. So I'm going to show you an example in human biology. In human biology, before this, we had like 50 course outcomes. But what we did is we looked at our program outcomes for the biology department, and we determined which of those that we felt were important for this course, and then we worded them in a way to apply to the human biology course. So we're now down to 5 course outcomes as opposed to 50. One thing I want to point out is in the template you'll be getting, these words right here, students who complete this course will, are not there. If you could type them in and then come up with your course outcomes, that will make every course outline consistent. So again, we know we can go through and assess all of these individually if we need to. So again, course outcomes, you don't want more than 5 to 10, and they want to be broad areas, usually based on program outcomes that you're going to cover in this specific class. Now, how do you cover that area? I mean, a concern of mine was, how do we make sure that other universities know what we are covering, let's say in our anatomy and physiology courses? These can go in the course content area. These are broad content area topics or themes. This is information that you feel you need to have in there that's going to help with the transfer of your course. So even though we had 87 in anatomy and physiology, we're not going to have that many in this area. We're going to narrow it down somewhat from what we did to the broad content areas. Now I'm going to show you the human biology one. Again, we used to have a bunch of these, but what we did is we sat down as a group, those of us that teach it, along with the Jasper campus, and we came up with the broad areas that we cover and that we want universities to see for the CTL list or for transfer, what we want them to see that we are covering in that class. And so what I asked faculty to do was, once we went through these and I kind of did a rough draft, to make sure that everything they're covering, it fits into these areas. And they did that, and so we came up with our final course content area. And again, I want to point out in the template, in this course, students will be expected to, you want to add those words and then list what the students will be expected to do during that class. We feel this is a list that if a university looks at it, they know what we're covering, and they can determine whether they're going to take it for transfer. Or in the CTL case, that Indiana schools know what we are doing in that class and what skills we are trying to teach the students. Course text and material policy. This is important, again, for distance education, Excel, early college, and military faculty. We need to know The university needs to know that these areas are using texts and books that we feel are appropriate and necessary for this specific course. So again, I recommend you sit down with the people that teach this full-time and adjuncts if you want to include them, and determining which textbooks you want people to use and what other material you might want them to have as part of this class. So a couple things here. In the presentation in May, we had the ISBN number here for the book. We're not going to include the ISBN number, or we don't want you to include the ISBN number, and there's several reasons why. One, when the edition changes, then the ISBN number changes, and then you'd have to redo this section. Also, a lot of books have several ISBN numbers, all representing that book being packaged with different material. So we're going to keep the ISBN number out. We're also going to keep the year out. Again, in an attempt to make this so we don't have to redo it very often. So what we have written is the current edition of this book. So this book is acceptable for this class. Now, we understand that at the high school level, there may be a limitation in terms of money to buy new textbooks. So what we have added to ours is that if you want to use a different textbook, a faculty member teaching this course, then they have to get it approved by the biology department of Vincennes University. So that leaves it open that other books can be used, but at least it gives us some control that we can control what books people are using. We want to make sure that they are quality books that we feel are necessary for this course. So I'll give you another example for anatomy and physiology. The Jasper campus uses a different book for anatomy and physiology than the main campus. So we just have both books listed, and then we have this statement in there, again, saying that approval is necessary if they want to use a different textbook. So again, this allows us to keep some control over our courses and increases the quality of the courses being taught off campus. Course grading policy. This is not just about a grading scale. We want to give as much information as we feel necessary to these areas, again, distance ed, early college, so that they teach a course and they grade a course as we expect them to from the main campus. So we have our main campus, Jasper campus course. This involves several things. It can involve percentage of grades, anything you want them to know that's going to keep that course similar as close as possible to the course being taught on campus. So a couple things can go on here, and again, you guys need to talk about it amongst yourselves in your groups, in your departments, to determine this. But let me give you a few examples. First of all, grading. We don't give them a grading scale. You can give them a grading scale. They're supposed to follow the VU grading scale, so that's expected. But we have percentages of points here. So in this is a lab course, the human biology course. So we want 20 to 25% of their grade to come from labs. One thing we've added, and you may think about this if you're a UCC course, we want those liberal education assignments to have some significance in a student's grade. So we know that they're taking it seriously and that we're taking it seriously when we teach it. So we've added a section where 25 to 30% of their grade has to come from assignments dealing with this. We have a test and final exam area. You may have your final exam separate because you want it to be worth a certain amount of their grade, and then we've given a homework or other section. The reason we've given a range is that even at the VU and Jasper campus, we don't all want to do exactly the same thing. Now we have to keep our lab points consistent on campus, but we want to give some flexibility. So we want faculty to have some freedom to do what they want, but we also want some limitations here to where the points should come from. Let me give you an example of how this is important. When we teach anatomy and physiology, or it's taught off campus, our anatomy and physiology course is a course used by a lot of pre-nursing, pre-physical therapy, all those different medical areas. We don't want a faculty member, an adjunct, or someone at another site having that 70% of the grade that they give comes from a paper a student writes or from homework. That is a course where tests are important because it's preparing the student to go into a majors program, and there's information that must be taught and must be assessed by a test. So what this allows us to do is to say, 80% of your points have to come from tests. So again, it helps us maintain the quality of the course. I'll give you another example. In our anatomy and physiology lab, the tests they have are fill in the blank without a word bank. So they go around, example for the bone test, and have to identify the bone parts without a list in front of them. So in our anatomy and physiology lab course outline, it specifically states in this section, no word bank is allowed. It must be fill in the blank. In an Excel situation, I went into a classroom for a visit, and it happened to be the day they were taking a lab exam, and the faculty member handed them a word list. I told him that that was not acceptable, and he would not agree to not give them a word bank because he said it made the test too hard. Now, what would have happened is those students that were taking AMP1 on that campus would have then come and tried to take AMP2 on our campus and not had a word bank in AMP2 and had a very difficult time. So we actually dropped him from the Excel because he refused to do the test the way that we asked. So again, that's another example of how this section can help you maintain quality of your course when it's taught somewhere other than the main campus. Now, how are we going to save the document? This seems like a small thing, but it is a big deal when you are trying to save several documents. So what we're asking is that you save your Common Course outline, use the 4-letter class designation, then a space, then the class number, then a space, then Common Course outline, just put CCO, do not spell it out, with a space, and then the year that you completed it. Now the due date is going to be August 30th of this year. Your dean will notify you on where you need to send it. It may go to them, it may go to your department chair, they may send it on. So be looking for emails that tell you where your dean wants it to be sent. Now we've added some time to this year since it's the first year we're using this new form. But after this year, changes will need to be sent to the Office of Curriculum and are due the Friday before classes start. So every year after this is the deadline. If you have questions on this process, and I'm going to talk about the syllabus in a little bit, please call the Curriculum Instruction Office at 888-4176, and they will and we will find you assistance if you have any specific questions. Now, what are you going to add to the syllabus details? These are your policies. Okay, so the syllabus, the instructional syllabus, is the course outline with these additional sections, and this is what you commonly think of as being part of a syllabus. What are your course policies? What are your instructional methodologies and activities? What's the calendar? What's the calendar for your course, the schedule, the assignments? So this is where the individual faculty's information is going to go. And again, if you look at this syllabus template, it is the Common Course outline plus these sections. Now the policy is going to be that you have to present the syllabus to the students the first day of class. This may involve handing them a copy of the syllabus, or it may involve putting it on Blackboard and going over it. I know for some faculty, at least in the biology area, what we do is we go over the syllabus, which is on Blackboard, and then we put a quiz on Blackboard over the syllabus that the student must take. So we have some proof or evidence that they have gone through and looked at the syllabus and understand the syllabus. So you want to make sure you do something to that nature on the first day of class. And again, if you have any questions about this information, again, you can call the office at 4176 and we will make sure you get assistance with this process. So again, this year they need to be done August 30th. Obviously your syllabus has to be done before that when classes start. And again, if you have any questions, please contact us. Thank you and have a good summer.